It's also over in the AAS garden in 37. So you may have seen, there's a shrub that occasionally has those really big white flowers. They're like this size, they have bright yellow centers. So if you've seen that in bloom, that is this thing here. The scientific name is Romnea coulteri. I don't think they've changed it recently, and it's in the poppy family. It is
huge poppy.
It is a very huge poppy. It is not native specifically to right around here. It grows in more deserty areas, more southern California. It's really whiny about drainage. So depending on the kind of landscaping you were doing, for example, you can put it in some places, but if its feet get wet, is the casual term, it gets very unhappy and may die. They are, given that, they are actually fairly aggressive, so they are good at spreading, often too good at spreading. So I've noticed that over at AAS, and it's one of the places it's happening, we're seeing it increase in number because it's dropping seeds. I don't know if it spreads by underground stems or not, but it might possibly be doing that as well. And the elderberry is just totally not with leaves right now. So I'm just going to point out a couple things, two of which, so those are the coastal redwood, Sequoia semperirens. This thing here, and this always amuses me, the common name of this one is giant sequoia. And of course it is a very young giant sequoia, so it's not so much a giant sequoia quite yet. This is the one that grows in the coast. I mean, not on the coast, I'm sorry, that one was in the coast. This one grows in the mountains of Sierra Nevada. So if you go to Yosemite, you go to Sequoia Kings Canyon, this one, its genus name is actually Sequoia dendron. These both in general, they need a fair amount of moisture. They tend to have relatively shallow root systems. You guys may or may not know that if you went back like 80 million years ago, and the chunk behind that, redwoods in general were widespread over all of North America, big parts of Europe, parts of Asia. And this one is actually sort of a remnant of that. This was rediscovered in the 1930s in China. It is called the Dawn redwood, and this is actually a deciduous redwood. So this one drops its leaves. And so this is not a native plant, but it's a very striking plant.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Very, very beautiful, and what we've got sort of is a little, sampling.
So it's originally from Asia, this one?
It is originally from Asia. I mean, in fact, they had seen fossils of it before they ever found it living on its own. And I'm pretty sure that it was a Japanese botanist in the 1930s that first came across it. But of course, World War II meant that you weren't seeing scientific communication between Japan and the so-called Western world. So that's kind of as far as that went. It's not really been taken care of very much at all by anyone ever, and it's not included in the current landscaping plans. These trees right here are actually native to Australia. They're very, very tough. Some people really like them and think that they look sculptural with their bark. I think that they are ugly as sin, and I keep trying to come up with plans to get rid of them, but that involve doing things like killing them in the dead of night, but that's not very nice. But what I did want to point out, now these guys right here, so notice they've got these nice green glossy leaves. They can, depending on how happy they are, they can change color. They come in different sizes. So this is a genus called Mahonia. There's a closely related genus called Berberis. Sometimes people squish them together. Oregon grape is one of the common names. Some of these can get to be a little bit taller than I am. Some of them are creeping barberry. That would be one of the common names that you might encounter on a nursery, for example. So these can be used, I think, effectively with other plants. You can see that they don't look absolutely fabulous when they're sort of scattered around like this. The berries are edible. So I come out here and graze sometimes because
they're pretty and blue.
Are they good?
Yeah, they're okay. I haven't grown.
Let's try them.
Let's try them.
People are gonna be like, people doing now.
Oh, these, yeah.
We've got two different oaks, and we're going to see. One of the things about oaks is that they hybridize. So even though theoretically things that are in different species should not be able to breed together, and that works pretty well for animals, it doesn't always work as well for plants. But in general, in California, there are two kinds of oaks. In a broad sense, they're the ones that drop their leaves. And so if you notice this one, and there's those little insets, so it's got what are called lobes, kind of like lobes of an arrow. And some of the varieties, some of the species, it's going to be more distinct. I'm going to pass it around so that you can feel this thing. So it's relatively soft as oak leaves go. If they have the lobes like that, they're deciduous. So you should feel the leaf and pass it on. And then there's this one right here, and we're going to see a lot more of the ones like this. Notice that those leaves don't have the little lobes, they have little teeth. Teeth, and if you felt them, and we'll feel some of the ones further up, teeth, lack of lobes, more toughness are going to mean just in general that you're looking at some of the evergreen oaks. So depending on the area that you're looking at, sometimes you want that deciduous habit because you want the sun coming in the summer. Sometimes you want that evergreen cover. They don't tend to transplant really well once they're above a certain age. Some of them are, you can get some that stay as shrubs basically. They're usually called scrub oaks. They tend to have smaller leaves. Some of them, the leaves are very beautiful, very, very dark green. You could use them as like a barrier to keep people from snugging up to your windows or something like that, because so they can look very, very nice. You want to choose your oaks carefully because some of them get very, very large over time. One of the evergreen oaks, and so if you feel the leaves, you can notice they're really, really, they're kind of sharp, they're kind of tough. These things are going to keep their leaves. So the plant at all times of year is going to have leaves on it. Now, actually, I was having on a field trip with one of my classes, I was having a session of what it means to be evergreen. And that doesn't mean that the leaves stay on there forever. What it means is all around the year, there are leaves on it. So these guys, you can see that this particular one, there are some individual leaves that are dying. And so some of these don't look quite as dramatic. This one in particular, which is definitely a hybrid of interior live oak and coast live oak. You can see that some of the leaves are dying, and it doesn't look especially attractive as far as that goes. In my experience, the straight up coast live oak doesn't do that as much. But again, they're beautiful and they're tough as long as you don't give them too much water.
Now, is this is the hybrid or the coastal oak vulnerable to sudden oak death syndrome, or
not as much as some things, but to some extent, it's very susceptible. In fact, that's the species they first detected it in. So, and they are gorgeous, but they're definitely very vulnerable. We used to have a lot more plantings through here, but when they were doing various phases of the remodeling, they took most of them out, much to my displeasure. But I wanted to point out this one right here. So this one is, no, this is a California. It looks kind of like pyracanther, but it is not. Okay. So this is one of the common names is toyon. One of the other common names is California holly, because if you look at the leaves, so you can see that the leaves do have little teeth on them, not as dramatically as holly. They're relatively tough. This is in fact the plant that Hollywood is named after.
Really?
So people looked at it and they said basically it's like what we have back in Europe. So California holly, it can grow as a shrub. You can keep it relatively short. It can grow with enough sunlight. It will grow very tall. Howdy, howdy, howdy. So it's, and you can see that when the berries are there, they're very striking, very beautiful.
Does birds like these too?
I would assume so. Now they're not fantastic tasting,
poisonous, obviously?
but they're not poisonous.
Didn't the Native Americans or the Ohlone used to use it?
They used it some. I don't know that I don't remember that it has a lot of medicinal qualities specifically, but I'm not saying that it doesn't. So this thing here, so this has very, very distinctive looking leaves.
Yeah, it does.
And if you look at the underside, it has these kind of golden hairs.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's not something that you'd want to use in general in places where people were going to be rubbing against it, because some people are sensitive to the little hairs. It has really beautiful yellow flowers, which have mostly W. You can see how big they are.
What's it called?
Oh, those ones that hang down?
You're thinking, I think you're thinking silk tassel. But you can see, so these guys there, they hang down a little bit. They don't, or when they're open, they're more up.
Oh, okay.
And or forward, and then they fall down later. I don't know if there are any of the flowers on it still.
Oh, right there.
Oh, where?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that. Look how big that is and how gorgeous that is.
It looks like a
I mean,
lily.
they're stunning looking flowers.
What's this called?
Fremontodendron or Fremontia. I do not know.
Fremontodendron or Fremont?
Yeah, Fremontodendron or Fremontia.
Fremont.
Um,
I don't know birds. I can't teach words. That's why I'm not a biologist.
so it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. You know, again, not super good for contact. Or you put it in an area where you want something to just take over a big chunk of turf and grow this big, beautiful plant there.
But what I see, though, is that overall, it does need to be managed.
Yeah, one way.
Because sometimes when you think of native plants, you think, oh, it's just going to let it grow. But I think it needs to be thought.
Yeah. If you had a big
and-
property, you could let it do its thing.
Right.
But otherwise, you're going to have to think about how you want to take care of it. So this is Manzanita, and the genus is Arctostaphylos.
It's like driftwood.
Yeah, it does.
Bark. I mean, the
And
wood.
you can see this one gets really tall, but there are, like with the Mahonia, like with the Mahonia, with the thing we were eating, the little blueberries from, there are a number of different varieties that come in different heights, slightly different bark colors. So you have, I mean, this is about as tall as Manzanita get. We have various ones on campus that maybe grow about this high, some of which they prune and some of which they don't. There are some creeping varieties that you can get that basically will just over time spread and work as a really, really nice ground cover.
We're looking at those too.
Yeah, they're beautiful plants. The leaves will be, it is not deciduous, so it is absolutely evergreen. Some of the leaves are like this, where they're more bright green. Some of them have kind of a bluish cast or a grayish cast, depending on what kind of hairs they have. So you can get different leaf colors, you can get different sizes.
And the bark is always red, or does it?
The bark is always, it's basically always red. So it peels, but it's always going to, over its lifetime, going to have that kind of coloration. So they're incredibly sculptural. They have, when they make, sorry, okay, when they flower, they have these beautiful little flowers that look kind of like vases or something like that. So small, but very beautiful.
What color?
Some of the white, pink, depending on the variety.
How come I never saw this?
And it makes berries. Yeah, you just didn't realize you were seeing.
So pruned so beautifully like that.
Yeah, you know, I don't.
Looks like it's managed.
You know, I don't think they manage it very much. I mean, this is just—it's one of the taller varieties.
Yes, look at.
And algae that are photosynthetic. I don't know ways of actually. I don't know ways of actually introducing lichen. But with the moss, if you want moss on a surface, you can get some mosses to do that. So what you would do is you would take some moss from some location, and you more brutal than that. You take it and you kind of like mash it up into a whole bunch of little pieces. And then what people that do this a lot swear by, although I don't know that it's been scientifically tested, is you then mix it with something like buttermilk, so it's going to have something to kind of attach, you know, I don't know, to even like nourish it when it's feeling stressed. And then you take your surface that's got soil or branches and you brush it over that surface.